Hi everyone, welcome to week 3 of Monday Reflections. Um, and as you know, this is basically where I will be reading some calming poetry, one by myself and one also by a poet who I really admire. And then there'll also be a word to focus on for the week. So this week it's on stress. And yeah, I think that's a kind of a big one that most it affects most people. I know that I've had some kind of stressful moments myself, and so it just seemed like a really poignant one to kind of reflect on for this week of stress, that sense of feeling overpowered, overwhelmed, but also what we can do to manage it, or kind of things we can do to kind of feel a lot less stressed this week. So I'll get onto that more after my first poem. And this one is called Space Dust. And basically, when I wrote this poem, I had in mind that I wanted to write something about space. Had that sort of idea, but also I was a bit of a mythology nerd when I was growing up. I really loved Roman and Greek mythology and Egyptian mythology, and so I had the idea of using there's a myth, Perseus and Andromeda. Basically, he was like this. He was this hero, and he eventually goes and saves Andromeda, who is lying attached to a rock, about to be eaten by a monster, and eventually saves her. But spoiler alert. But yeah, I kind of thought it's a really appropriate poem for this type of week. Dust spinning off into space. Clumps of matter in the distance, forms of beings too far to see. I search for you in vacant places, but it's not you I see. You're off in outer space, and I can't find you. Missing the clumps of stars that once were, that once formed you. The ghost of a being now gone. The cold reminds me that nothing or no one is missing, that nobody is coming. The constellations form into a semblance of you. The northern sky bears Andromeda, mirrors this sense of longing. Perseus, come find her. Break down the chains and fetters that bound her in place, and on winged feet come find me. Let time be no delay. If hours are telescopes, then be an oracle. Show me where you are, and come find me on winged feet. Thank you. And yeah, there's an interesting line in there that says the hours are telescopes, and I'm a part of. I travel a lot to the West Midlands and also Southwest, and there's this really fantastic poetry night that they do in Bristol called Tonic, and I was. It was like a writing prompt, and so that kind of tied together with the whole mythology and sense of loss. That kind of formed and came that poem. So stress. So as I said, so I thought this week it might be really effective to kind of think about this particular topic, because I know that during this time of isolation and social distancing, it's not always the easiest to be positive or to be upbeat. Sometimes it might be really you might be feeling really irritable or just frustrated because it just seems like there's no kind of sense in what's ultimately the sense in what's happening. But uh, it can seem as if what we were used to is kind of passing, and right now what we're experiencing is kind of a state of meh. So I kind of thought that when I was kind of going for really difficult moments of stress, or even now sometimes, I think it's basically important to acknowledge that you feel stressed, acknowledge that this is something that's happening, and to try and think why, if there's a particular thing, a problem, person. And then once you've done that, then I'd say the second thing is to really see what you can change. What are the things that we can do, that we can say that, okay, this is the little adjustments I can make, whether it's to uh, prepare mentally how to deal with something, or and equal on the flip side, things that we can't change, things that we're saying right now, I can't change this, but I can accept that this is happening and try and move forward. I think the third thing I'd say would be that it's important to find the appropriate ways of dealing with stress so that it doesn't become this overwhelming, all encompassing problem, that it's not like a kind of unwanted guest in the house. So some people are very different. Like I know that some of my friends, they love baking or learning a language, walking, exercise. It could just be just talking to a friend, listening to calming poetry. But I think it's appropriate to find a healthy way of managing this as best as you can. And the fourth thing I definitely say is breathing. Like, it is so important to just breathe and relax because it's strange, but it's so easy to almost forget to breathe and to kind of take that step back to relax when you've got things in your mind and things that you're kind of trying to deal with and trying to work on and trying to sort out. And the fifth thing I'd say is just to remember you are human. You're not made of stone and you are not made of diamonds. So you're bound to feel kind of stressed about the circumstances. You're bound to want to go back to the way things were, but it's just not to be hard on yourself about it. So I'm gonna read a poem by a poet I think is fantastic. I met them last year. Um, Jonathan Kinsman is this really, really talented poet, and when I started doing open mics, they were performing, and I watched how they did their set. It was so cool, and they have a pamphlet called Ampersand, like the and. That was last year's. They've got a new one coming out, which I can't wait to read and buy. Um, for those people who've got spare money, want to buy it, and yeah. So what I wanted to read, I thought it's one that they've done, and it's basically it looks at different iterations of the self, and I just thought it's pretty brilliant. And it's X, and it's X self as masculinity. Fingers raised to feel the breeze. Jonathan tracks barefoot through the fells, content to let the clouds pass overhead uninterrupted. He spins with the slow rotation of the planet, carves Lichtenberg figures into the hillside, chalk scars on the landscape, scent of thunder, voice of autumn leaves, all these things invisible. The hand that lifts the bumblebee, the eyelids that slide closed in night, the thoughts that write the world. So, um, thank you for listening again, and hope you have a good week. And just remember to stay safe, stay tuned, and I will see you next Monday. Thank you.